February 13th, 2023 to order. Roll call, board members in attendance, Brian Otley, Holly Groschner, myself, Patty Richards. Also with us is Christine Paulquest. And Christine, do you want to do the staff rundown?
Yep, we have Lucy here, Lucy Rogers. We have Alyssa Matthews, Aaron Herzog, Tracy Collier, and Rob Fish, basically full house.
Okay, excellent. Our first item for action is to approve the agenda. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Holly. Any discussion?
I think, yeah, there would think, so let me just, unfortunately, I've been reaching back and forth with the attorney, the general counsel candidate, and she is still very sick. So she's not able to attend this meeting. I talked to her last night, and she was optimistic because her fever broke, but then she said this morning it got pretty serious again.
So Christine, will we have anything on number 3, which is confidential general counsel board interview?
Well, we don't. I think we should go into executive session to discuss that, but I would rather wait till Dan Nelson gets here. So I think we should still put it on the agenda, but maybe boot it later.
Okay, and I would suggest rather than use any names, let's keep that confidential.
Oh, yeah, I shouldn't have used the name. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I also note that as far as I can see, the board packet does not include credentials of any candidate or the scope of the search.
Okay, we can talk about that. Sure.
All right, so we'll go into executive. We'll keep number 3 on the agenda. We'll go in briefly for executive session to discuss administrative issues around that interview, but no name should be discussed and no reference to gender as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, no worries.
And yeah, so we'll need to move that for Dan to be present. So we'd like to propose that we boot that to after the capacity grant discussion, and then go right into the. And we like to talk about the budget first. We'd like to move the budget ahead because the pre-construction application review requires Rob Beatskay to be here.
All right, so you want the budget number 6 to be after number 4?
Yes, yes.
Okay, and then number 3, which is the confidential interview issue, we'll move until Dan Nelson is in attendance.
Okay. Oh, well, Rob, wait a minute. Rob V is here apparently. Well, why don't we stay with that? Let's just stay with that agenda because let's get that budget discussion. I think is important.
Okay. So with those changes in order, the only other thing I would like to note is that the year on our board packet is 2022. And just for correction, we'll make that 2023. And I know that's easy to do, but it's February 13th, 2023.
Oh, good catch.
Yep. All right. All those in favor of those changes of the agenda and edit, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. First item on our agenda for action is approval of the January 9th meeting minutes. I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes in the packet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
Yes, we have erroneously stated that our basis for going into executive session is 1 VSA 313A1, and it was not. It is A3 to discuss personnel matters. So I would appreciate the minutes being corrected and the references in today's agenda to executive session being corrected.
Certainly, we'll do that.
Thank you for that catch, Holly. Any other changes? Right, with that change, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry. The minutes are approved with the change of the reference for executive session. All right, moving along, we are on item 4, the Chittenden County CUD pre-construction application presentation and review. Christine, you want to tee us up?
Sure. This is, I'm really going to turn this over to, Lucy Rogers is going to handle this one. So actually, we're turning it right over to the Chittenden County folks. Are the Chittenden County folks here, Rob?
I believe so. Or, sorry.
Yeah, that's why we were going to put the budget. That's why I wanted to put the budget item at 12:10 was because
I can let them know to join and I let them know that I can let them know to join and they can be on shortly if you would like, Christine.
Why don't we go, can we go to the budget discussion?
I have no objection to that. Brian
Okay.
or Holly, are you good with that?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't, sorry, I wasn't clear. That was my
Let's move
intent.
to budget.
Okay, sorry, so sorry about the confusion. Tracy, I want to tee this up to say Tracy has done some amazing work. You know, as I've discussed with the board, tried to get the various budget sources and get this lined up with the Governor's Budget Adjustment Act. The BAA doesn't consider the federal programs that have not been approved yet as part of a budget. Of course, the board expects us to forecast what our funds are going to be. So Tracy took on this, what I'll call a Herculean task, and she has we're pretty much 95% there with the budget. I think last I talked to her the last Friday, there's still a few numbers she's chasing, but I'll turn it over to Tracy. You ready for that, Tracy?
I am. Thank you for having me. I know that I'm sharing my screen. I know that you all received a version of this budget report draft in your packet, but this one the one I'm sharing has been updated. And I just was hoping that you would all let me walk through it a little bit and talk about the things that we're trying to fix. I would like if you can respond to the format and what we're trying to capture as opposed to the actual numbers, because like what Christine said, we're still massaging the numbers into place. So some of these numbers will change. And with a state system as complicated as this and bringing all the numbers in, it's likely to never be a final budget report, but it's to share with you where we're at a given time. So the numbers will shift a little bit just because of the complexity. This budget report comes from a program called Power BI. And the functionality is allowed to bring in the state data, the data of the board approvals, and any other, miscellaneous data into one format so that we can provide you with the full look at the budget at any given moment, really. But we're going to be on a quarterly schedule. But Christine has access to this. Well, we'll have access to this when it goes live. We're still in the testing period. And she'll be able to drill right down to any number that she needs to see as she goes forward. Any questions before I get started?
This is Laura. I have a question.
Hi, Laura. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. This is a budget report for the board. Is that right?
That is right.
And
What is
so
step? I'm sorry. Pardon me, Laura.
And I think I heard. Sorry, can I finish?
Yes, it's my apologies. I blurted.
Okay, no problem. So if this is a quarterly report to the board, we should be able to have finals from the previous period and then projected going forward, right? I just want to clarify because I think I heard discussion that we wouldn't be able to really ever have finals.
Yes, I think you're right. There will be finals, but there's a great deal of flux right now. Sometimes we're working under the assumption of a grant award that hasn't actually been put into the state account system yet. And that sometimes requires us to pull from a different pot of money to pay a bill that will then be transferred into that other pot of money. And that's where I'm talking about the flux. So it's a temporary charge and then it gets moved back into the appropriate funding stream.
Yes, and that
Do
should
we have
be
final?
minor.
Do we-
That should be minor, and overall won't necessarily change the top level number. But again,
Do we have final, like, year-end numbers at this point that are solid?
We actually do have those, and I'd be happy to share those with you. They're not in this format.
That's okay. I just wanted to confirm that we have that. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks,
Point well
Laura. So-
taken.
Yes, thanks, Laura. I just wanted to let the record know that Laura Sibilia has joined us.
And Holly, I heard a question coming from you as well.
Thanks. I'm almost don't know where to start. Can you advise us, Tracy, where the staff does its budgeting, if not in this report?
yeah, we're gonna get there. No, we're gonna get there. You show the step. Yeah.
I'll
So just
show you
hold
all
that
the
question.
screens, and then if you
Okay,
still
I'll
have
hold
that
the
question,
question.
Yep.
And
So in terms of format, let's have Tracy go through her presentation and then let's leave questions to the end. Because a lot of
Okay.
times we will cover ground that if I have a question, it gets covered during the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, I think that's wise.
And
Okay.
really, we're looking at the format and responding to the format to see where you'd like it. Let me show you the format. Now I'll walk you through. This first page is what I would call a summary page of all the funding sources. As you'll see here, it doesn't include BEAD or digital equity or NBRC. Those will be added. The first cut didn't include those, and they're still on their way into the state finance system and records. And so that's why they're not here yet. And you'll see the little star, and that says need to fix. That's an administrative fix that's a box. If everyone could mute, that would help. With being able to hear. Is
Can
everyone
everybody
hearing
mute
beyond
their
echo?
laptops, please? Everybody mute.
Let me try again. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, and this second page is our budget report for our CUDs. Has them all broken out. Has a few caveats currently. So there's, if you see the first star, it's under sum of grantee award. That will populate the total when the agreement is fully executed. So there's periods of time where the board approves something and it takes time to get the agreement fully executed and then into the state system. And so that's where you're seeing like some numbers that don't quite mesh with what we've obligated. But again, that will catch up once we want to be able to show you that fully obligated immediately and then be able to catch up the sum of the grant awarded as we get those agreements executed. That takes time. The vendor names will be updated to reflect the current CUD names. As you can see, Addison County is what's in the state financial system. So I'm working on a crosswalk to update those names so that we are all talking about the same places and same CUDs with the same names. Sum of obligated includes both, currently the sum of the obligated includes both encumbered amounts and the board approved amounts that have not had fully executed agreements, and we've decided to split those out so that you can see what you've approved and has not been in an agreement and what's actually just encumbered by the state. We know that the money is already going to be spent. And then I can look at each funding source. And this one is the Act 74 ARPA funds that started everything here, and we're still in the process. A lot of the expenses hit this funding source as we were getting up and running and starting to get going until other funding source came online, and now we're moving. And we've done a lot of that work, but it's tedious, and we will catch up because this funding is meant to be grants out to CUDs. So you'll see this cleanup as we go through. And then we have the ARPA capital where we're starting to look at that, and I'll be able to watch how that moves forward. Yeah, and with the H315, that's another funding source that just has a little bit of funds left in it to watch and to be aware of. And then we have the one-time general fund, which is where the board obligated the $400,000 to the NEK for their use in generating funds and moving forward with their work. And we'll keep adding that to the screens. And then the final, that's
that 400,000 was for the NEK. The board approved an NEK grant, broadband grant. So.
Yeah. Yep. I think they called it something, but now I'm worried that I'm going to say it wrong. So I'm holding my tongue. Like it was to generate funds, additional funds for them.
It was to leverage VITA for the match for the USDA grant.
Rob, thank you. And then we have the USF funding, a lot of that ARPA funds that was originally, a lot of the funds that were originally posted to the ARPA money are being moved to the USF funds. And we're really looking into a deep dive of where we're at with that. And moving forward, we'll have more reports showing those transfers. That's the final page. And like I said, I'm very interested in a response to how this looks to you. Does this help you to see where we're at, and what could I add to help make it even more clearer?
All right, thank you very much, Tracy. That's very helpful. I really appreciate you going through all the material that you have. Let's open it up to questions. Holly has her hand up, so we'll start with Holly.
Thanks, Tracy. I will be still interested in how the staff is monitoring its own budgets on a monthly basis, but sticking with this presentation, it would help me if we could eliminate the sum of budget and total liabilities, blue and green lines. Other board members might feel differently about that. The pictures are not helping. They're just spreading the material.
So you would like to see it with no pictures? Like this has the dial and the bar graph, or do you want one picture?
I don't find them particularly informative. Then
can I stop you, Holly? I'm sorry. Is that the feel for the whole board? Do you like me to take the pictures out? I just want to make sure my notes reflect what we need to do.
So I'm a numbers, tabular numbers type person, so the pictures.
Just make it full screen.
I actually like the visuals, so I'm going to put a vote in for the visuals.
Okay.
I do too.
Either way.
Yeah,
if these are
numbers that we have on our dashboard, are these numbers that we have on our dashboard?
These are different numbers, but they would want to match, right? If we were looking at the CUD funds, one of the things when I went over this with Christine is she said, I need this to match we need to make sure that we're matching what's on the dashboard to what's in the budget report. It's a good check, right? And
yes,
timing is going to affect that, right? When you upload your dashboard numbers and you upload your budget numbers, but it should be pretty close.
Yeah, this is the same. The sum of grants awarded is what you'll see on the dashboard. This is what the board has approved, and this is what's on our dashboard. I remember the dashboard being somewhere 124 million, so I think we're pretty close.
So, okay. I guess I would rather just have numbers and also not have anything uploaded to our dashboard that is not final.
Yeah, the sum of grants awarded will be final. That's what the board has obligated. The reason we want to do what the board has approved is because it takes quite a while for the state system to catch up. And we need, and I guess that's the, we've obligated these funds. I guess that's open for rest of the board discussion. We made a decision on staff that we should report what the board has approved. That way, it's clear what work we've done. We're not contingent upon any of those state processes that kind of distort the picture. But, if you want to take the actual, what was obligated in the state system, we're still, as a staff, going to need to look at awarded, because we don't want to award any more than we have available. Does that make sense?
It begs the question whether there should be a column for awarded as opposed to obligated in
That's
the
what
budget.
we said we would
in our
do
budget
was-
report, but I agree with Christine that what we publish publicly should show board awards.
Sure, it's right. That's great. I think that we're on the same page. And what I did say is we've agreed to change, to break out some of obligated. That will just be encumbered. That's a state word, state finance word. And then additionally, we'll have a board approved line so that we aren't missing what the board has approved while we're in process of executing those agreements. And your first question was, how is the board using these how is the staff using these budget numbers to make decisions? Is that what your question was?
Well, is this the report that they use?
This will be, I believe, and Christine, you can.
Yeah, this is the report we'll be using, yes.
Okay, so I have 5 other questions, so I'd like to continue as quickly as we can. I am interested, Tracy, why we wouldn't go ahead and, this is a format, so why not go ahead and put, for example, the BEAD funding into.
We will. No, we will. We just
Why
haven't
not
got
do it
there.
now?
Because
Well,
this was
It
a
would just show,
huge,
it would just show zeros all the way across.
this was a huge undertaking. And so in the next rendition, we will have those added. It's not a
Okay.
state process that we're waiting on. It was just, this is what we had. This is what we started with. Next step, we'll get that in there.
Oh, that's great. I thought maybe we had to wait for, a Hail Mary someplace else.
No.
Okay.
No, we're getting there. I didn't want
why-
to wait until then.
In many of the final columns, it says a negative number for budget remaining. How can it be a negative number? Why isn't it 0?
So those negative numbers are because the award, the award has not been fully executed, and the sum of the grantee award is only capturing those funds that have been fully executed.
Which
Oh,
that
so
gets to the, that's the
So
state
you're
system.
telling me
delay.
that
Yeah.
until the grant is completely closed out, it shows a negative number as an obligation?
Fully
What does it mean?
executed, fully executed means signed and processed through the state system, not spent down.
So if I was to go back through this report and look at every negative number, there is a contract pending. Is that right?
Yes, exactly right. But don't look at the numbers yet, because those numbers are still being fine tuned.
I'm just looking at what it means.
Yes, that's what that means.
Okay. And then, encumbered versus approved grant agreement. I think we just had that conversation.
Yes.
And when we talk about the $400,000 for NEK that came out of a different source, that unique source,
Yep.
is that also shown in the first slide with regard to totals allocated per CUD?
It's right here, one-time general fund. So all of the breakouts will all show up in this summary page.
Okay, so, but this doesn't, and I appreciate you clarifying that we're not going to have a row that's called need to fix. But where will we show the aggregated expenditure allocated per CUD? the aggregated allocation.
Yeah, that's just,
received.
I think that's your third slide. I think, yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay. And so the 400,000 would show up here.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good question. It probably could. I don't know that it is now, but it
No,
probably
it's
could.
not. It's not.
Okay.
So.
Well,
Thank
so
you.
That's a great
when,
point.
when you're
you.
reporting by CUD, we need to be complete.
Yep,
Yep.
agreed.
Yep, I
Got it.
just need
Okay.
to communicate that to the finance office, right? They don't necessarily know how things are tied, so I'll do that.
Thank you. And then board costs show up in multiple funding categories. Why?
Let me look.
Like one is $24,000. And then there's one in earlier that's a small amount.
I would
There.
imagine that that is part, I don't think that that has been moved from the original ARPA. We charged everything to ARPA because we didn't have funding sources set up and we had to do it somewhere. Now we're doing the fix, the big major fix of transferring the funds that were charged to ARPA to the right funds. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Well,
Is in
there's that one and another one.
USF. So you're
There's
seeing
board
it,
costs there. Yeah.
yeah, you're seeing it in ARPA and you're seeing it in USF because it was initially charged to ARPA and now it's being moved to USF and maybe it's not fully.
Yeah, it's not that, that's the answer. You will see that next,
So,
can I say
so
that
where
next month
do
that that'll be
I,
transferred?
yeah, so
Yeah.
where do we see? Yeah, I appreciate that you're being so detailed as to show us these expenditures by funding source. That's great and certainly essential for the staff. But where do we show expenditures total in addition to those totals by CUD? There should be other expenditures by code or by I can't think of the word I want, but by line item in the budget.
So you're looking at maybe a summary page that shows all that. I don't think that board cost is going to span multiples, but it could, like pretend it did. So you would like to see a summary of all board costs and make sure that you can see that without looking.
I'd like to know that if we're spending money on other personnel costs, for example, that there isn't some sprinkled here and some sprinkled there. Each of these expenditure line items, as a fiduciary, I need to see it as a snapshot.
Let me see what I can do. It does also need to be tracked very closely under the funding source. So, but I think that there probably is a way to show a summary. So I will work on that.
If I add, we'll work on this, Tracy. I think that ties back to, remember the original budget
Yes.
the board had, that was in their mind in terms of, so we'll create another page that lines up with that.
Thanks a lot. It would just be good for us to know that, personnel costs for the VCBB aren't exceeding our distribution to CUDs, for example. That would be, something we'd want to have an eye on.
I'll definitely work on that for the next time that I present. Thank you for that feedback.
Really appreciate it, Tracy. Thank you.
Laura, your hand is up as well. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Christine, I just want to make sure I understand what the objective is for this agenda line item. And what I think it is that you're looking for feedback on work that is in flux. Is that right? Or are we
Yes.
authorizing something? What are we doing?
Well,
here?
this is your board report. Tracy and I, the team, are down in the details, but we want to know what you're looking for in your fiduciary responsibility for this quarterly report.
Okay, got it.
So what Holly is saying is we'll put another page up that has, all these different costs in one place versus the budget, what was budgeted. And we've got that information.
Yeah, and so I'd be interested in what the rest of the board is, is looking for. Certainly I think grant awards, overall funding appropriations to the VCBB and grant awards that we have made to CUDs and other are 2 items. For me, I would like to see, finalized financials from whatever period, we're able to get them.
Can I pause you there, Laura, and just ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
So we can get financials that are like rubber stamped from the vision system. They are going to not include things like approvals by the board that have not yet been fully executed. Now,
Right.
we might catch up at some point when we do these quarterly reports to you. We might have enough time to get them all executed and be all caught up in the perfect world, but we may not. So this report is really meant to show you what is right now happening. So I'm happy to do both.
So what I'm asking for, I think, is both, which
Okay.
is a summary by year of the appropriations and flavor of the appropriations that we have gotten. A summary by year of the grant awards that we have made to the CUDs and others, because those are things we're doing. And also, it would be helpful for me to see the financials from the state, and so I think what I'm hearing you say is, it takes a while for things to catch up. Do we have any period that is finalized at this point?
We do, and yet I'm worried to say that because we're making because it depends on the period you're thinking of. We're doing transfers. So as of June 30, yes, but we're still doing transfers from ARPA that we spent out to USF and other funding streams so that we can use all of that first Act 74 ARPA to cover grants only. So we're just still in the cleanup mode. Very little left to do.
But now that is that cleanup for fiscal year 22 or fiscal year 23?
I believe we have a final 22. So I will ask for a state fiscal year final 22.
So we can give you the final numbers as of July 1st of 22, right?
June
Yeah,
30.
that's right.
22. Yeah.
June 30, 22. Yeah.
That would be helpful. And then, having our budget for 23, as a 4th item, and then, performance to budget as a 5th item, help me understand if I'm asking for something that's a little hard to get, but that would be the 5 things that I would like to see.
That is super hard. I don't mean it's super hard. It's hard because I was tasked with showing the full picture and I'm worried we're going to miss. Like, this to me is going to show you better where we're at than what you're asking for because of the catch up.
So I'm asking for the budget for this year.
Yep, got that. We can give you that.
And then I'm asking for progress to date to period on the budget.
Yeah, now let me pause right there because that really is where we've got to peel that apart a bit. Progress today with the budget is what we know we have obligated and spent, which is different from the state reporting system because so as long as you understand, these won't line up with what the state reporting system has.
So I think that's fine, and we should choose one or the other to see as a board and ask staff to make notations about what we're not seeing. So for instance, if we ask for the state performance to date to budget, then we should have staff provide maybe some notes about what we might expect to see changing going forward. If we're asking for what we have, I'm worried about us asking for the board for the staff to just report. I would rather see what the state has and then have the board just note, what the discrepancies are from what the state has.
Yeah, except our staff position, we need to know what has been spent. So we're always going to know what was spent. And our job, our job is to get the state system to
Okay.
line up with what we spent. So
Okay.
we're going to do the due diligence to make sure the state system reflects what we report is spent.
So that's fine. I would be agreeable if the rest of the board also is agreeable on having, the staff version of performance to budget for the previous period, whatever we're, for the previous quarter, that would be fine with me. But I mean, I think it's those 5 things that I am looking for. And I would love to hear from my fellow board members if they're, I'm not an accountant. I have, so are there other things that we should be asking for? Are those not the right things to ask for?
So I'll jump in. My lens that I'm looking for data on this is I want enough data that we can make good judgment decisions and understand what's going on, where the money's going. But I also don't want to stress staff out with all they end up doing is tracking budget numbers for us. So I'm cognizant of the work on the back end. If it gets too complicated, it just gets messy and you spend a lot of time dealing with budget to actual and maybe not doing other work that we should be doing. So I just want a reasonable, I prefer a reasonable high level, formative enough that is not super complicated. I'm going to also reiterate the visuals are important to me, so I do want to see the visuals remain.
Thank you, Patty. I appreciate your feedback.
So Patty, can I ask for clarification? So of the 5 things that I asked for, one was appropriations by year. The other was grants by year. The next was budget. And then, maybe I've only asked for 4 things. And then performance to budget, which is the thing that, are any of those items that you would suggest we not have? Because I think that's what they're showing us.
Yeah, the thing for me is what Tracy's work is encapsulating. I would like it to be one package versus Tracy produces a body of numbers and then Christine has to manipulate those numbers to report different information. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because then it starts getting messy and there's interpretation stuff going on. So I would like to stay with one tracking system to the extent we can, and we're getting good information. I'm not saying any of the things you brought up, Laura, are not good information. I'm just cognizant of the fact of having 2 different methodologies.
Okay. I'm wondering if what we're getting is what I've asked for and if there are other things.
Not yet. Let me just, I just want the board to express all of their desires here. And what we'll do, Tracy and I will go off and sort through all that and bring you back something next month. How's that sound? Because I want to try to meet all of your requests. Yeah. And I haven't heard anything.
That's good feedback. Let's hear all of our wish lists and then come back with a new version.
Okay.
So let's go to Holly and then to Brian and then Dan.
I just want to understand what you're asking for, Laura. Is performance actual, like the actual against the budget? And I assume
yes.
Okay.
And I'm hearing staff say that they need to know that number themselves.
Of course. No, I just want to understand what performance means to you.
Yeah.
And then the budget you're looking for is current year budget, or is it, oftentimes organizations will do budget for the current fiscal year compared to the prior fiscal year?
Well, I'm looking for current fiscal year.
Okay. And last but not least, appropriations per year. Okay, that seems like playing 3D chess to me. But you do it every day, so good on you. The question I have is, can't that just, and this is really a Tracy question, can't that just be entered into like right now we have ARPA and, think of another category, general fund. Can't it just be like general fund 2020, general fund 2021, general fund 2022, and do it similarly like that?
I'm just gonna need to probably go back with Christine on that, because my understanding is these are to go through this project. They're not awarded like this much money for this year and this much money for that year. They're over time. It's to spend this one down and then move to this one and then, get the work done. So I might be missing something, and I'm sorry
Yeah,
if I
actually,
am.
that gets to the crux of how we're using the numbers versus how the state reports them and all that. It's that, for example, let me just summarize. First of all, we get a fund and we keep that fund till we draw it down. We're not getting new funds every year, so to speak. So, for example, when we talk about ARPA capital and that's so. Let's take ARPA capital for a minute. We budgeted for that, and the state didn't show up in the state system until October, I think late October. So we budgeted, we knew it was coming. So, I think about traditional business, right? You do a budget, how much revenue, what's our forecast, what's our actual? So we're going to do a forecast at the beginning of each fiscal year of what our revenue is. We're going to know what we spent the previous year. That's really independent of all the state systems, because we're going to finish the year. For example, we have a total of 245,000 we've been saying for allocating to our CUDs. If we don't spend all that at the end of, we anticipate getting all that obligated. But if we don't get it obligated, that's going to carry over to the following year. It's not like the state system where it goes back into the system and you start over. So think of this as a multi-year project rather than a one-year project. But also, so let me say what else I'm used to seeing, and I think many of you will probably agree with this. We're talking about capital funds right now. There's a capital budget and there's an operating budget. The operating budget is the thing that changes year to year, right? We forecast that. So I think maybe, Tracy, what we'll do is we'll look at that from a capital versus operating. I'm starting to see even the way I'm talking is confusing, because we have capital funds and then we have our operating funds. We need to treat those separately.
And I definitely want to meet all the needs of the board. I'm not trying to be difficult. Yeah. Brian, and do you want to go next?
Yeah, I mean, so first, I think this is going to take iteration. So the thought of us giving all of our feedback right here and we're going to get it right, and Tracy's going to be able to go away and make that happen is not real. So
thank you.
It's going to be iterative. So I think we give small amounts of feedback, let Tracy do her magic, come back, see it, and then we try to, in rapid succession, and we can probably do some of this offline, try to massage these into something that we find usable. The second thing is, I think we're talking about a handful of different views. The thing that I'm most interested in is by CUD, how they're tracking against their budgets performance-wise from a capital standpoint. So this look feels very interesting to me. Whether this has everything I need in it, I don't know. I'd have to spend some time with it. But being able to then drill within each CUD grant award and understand the different expense categories underneath that, so we know whether how they're tracking against equipment versus payroll versus consultants versus whatever. I think that's going to give us some insights that we're going to need to monitor that. So that's, from my perspective, that's of primary importance. Tracking the high level, sources of grant funding and all that, absolutely important. But, I think the focus on how the CUDs are doing, getting early warning signs on ones that are doing well and ones that may be struggling, and watching those dollars roll through as they execute on their plans is really important.
And Brian, I just wanted to let you know that what Christine will have and what we might decide to pull out into even more, I don't want to make it so bulky that it's not useful, right? Too much to look through, but each plus sign here next to the CUDs will bring down the next level of detail and then the next level of detail. And so we will need to decide which level of detail is appropriate to share.
Yep, that makes good sense to me.
Brian, I want to amplify what you're saying because that is personally, my next level of work is to work with each CUD. We don't have that information right now. I'm assuming the CUDs have that information, but I haven't yet met with each CUD to look specifically at what their financial tracking and reporting is. But I agree that is really what each CUD should know exactly what their burn rates are, what their expenditures are. And, in the ideal world, we should be able to drill down to that.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I don't know if we put the onus on the CUD to provide that reporting, or, they provide data to Tracy to provide that reporting, but, an obligation of the grant is that they have sound financial controls in place that should be able to produce high level summary data like this without too much problem. And if they can't, that's what I mean, that's a warning sign. Then we need to spend more time on that.
That's really good to check it against what we have, because you don't want to rely solely on your grantees either.
Yep, exactly. Yep, I agree. I'm done, Patty.
Okay, let's go to Dan.
I agree with a lot of what's been said there. I think what Christine is driving at there is from the VCBB budget, it seems to break out into two pieces, capital and operating. And just to know what grant funds are available, and then what's been awarded, even though it doesn't show up in the state reporting, we all know what we've approved. And so it's earmarked, so to speak.
It will show. I just want to be sure that you understand. It will definitely show on these reports what you've awarded. I went through great pains to make sure that we could add that to this. It was of great importance.
Yep. My apologies because I was late, so I didn't get
That's okay.
On as deep. But those are just basics of running a business, how much is coming in and going out on the capital side, and then our operating budgets for the VCBB. I think that we need to provide a template. This is an important part in my mind, and Brian touched on this, and I'm just going to reiterate some of it, is the CUDs, we should create a template for performance. Each one will be different depending on their territory, but to understand things like basics, the amount of money they've received, how much they anticipate spending, and what those sources are. Some of it will be from grants, some of it will be from private. And then performance in terms of construction, where do they land in cost per mile, cost per customer pass? I'm not sure exactly what the right metric ought to be. I have a lot of ideas in that space, but how are they performing against their plan from a construction management perspective, I think is going to be important. And then the last part is their operating budget. How are they doing in managing their operating budgets? But if we could provide that, I think it's important that we provide a template of basic measures, and we probably could do that in support with the CUDA. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Those were really good. Laura, your hand is up, and then we'll go to Holly.
Yeah, Christine, what are we requiring for reporting from the CUDs right now?
Rob, could you answer that question? I don't know the answer to that.
So Alyssa,
Actually,
I know
Kristen-
you're creating a new template for the reporting. If not, Kristen might be the best to answer the
Yeah,
question.
Kristen, maybe you can answer
I
that.
think it varies.
Yeah, right now we get a monthly report. It's due the 15th of every month for the prior month's financial information. It also gives us an update on the milestones that were in their grant agreement. If they're, on target with it, if there's a delay, they're supposed to identify that information and let us know kind of like what's going on with it. Right now, they're all in a little bit different format because we haven't fully standardized. We're working on getting a grants management system up that will hopefully help with that. That's still in process. Of course, it's got to go through all the hoops at the state to be able to make that work. So once that's in place, we hope it'll be a little bit more standardized and we'll be able to have some better metrics in there. That's going to be the same for all of the grantees as opposed to kind of piecemeal as we have it now. But they are required to report to us monthly with, their milestones and financial information.
Okay, and who is reviewing those monthly?
That's me. I review them.
Okay.
If there's anything that comes to light that's, unusual or problematic, then I elevate that to Rob or Christine for further review. But if it's kind of business as usual, it ends with me.
Do you produce any kind of report about that?
I do
these?
not at this time. I think once we get the reporting system up and running, we'll be able to run reports out of that much more easily. It would be, with all the information we have coming right now, that would be 100% of my job if I made reports out of everything that's coming in. So, but in the future, once we get our system up and running, hopefully that'll be a little bit easier to manage.
Yeah, and we're also getting Lucy Rogers up, up to speed on this as well. She'll be reviewing those reports. And I think, I think this discussion is really important. I think for the board level and executive director level, we want to see the financials. I'll be talking with Tracy and Kristen and Lucy how we can get that. But on the reporting, that's Chris. The actual reporting is Kristen's job. But like I say, Lucy will get involved now because she'll be the loop. So there's that level of feedback loop that's going to happen at the Kristen Lucy level. But then we want to make sure the checks and balances in place. So, so the board and myself can make sure financially everything's on track.
Yeah, I think it would be great once that is standardized. I think it would be great to have a simple report about that in terms of staff's assessment about whether or not projects are on track or not on track, when we meet.
Maybe one way to slice that, I think this is really great discussion, that if Kristen, once she gets her feet grounded in terms of her review process, maybe just do a quick presentation of what she's looking for, give us the certainty that there's eyes on this. And we've got staff's eyes on the CUDs and how they're spending, and just to understand what she's looking for. So doing like a presentation later on once things are kind of more grounded.
Yeah, and that's totally doable. Like you said, once we have the system up and running, that becomes a whole lot more manageable. Right now, we're kind of, using Band-Aids to make sure that we're seeing what we need to see and doing what we need to do. But once that system's up and running, it'll make us a heck of a lot more easier.
Terrific. Okay, Holly, are you all set? No, go ahead.
So Kristen, what
Yep.
you do in monitoring how the expenditures are running against grant obligations is essential. And I appreciate that it will be more efficient when you have a system. But for my money, and this is our taxpayer dollars, you don't have a more important function, even if it takes all your time. And so I urge you to talk to Christine about what parameters you're going to explain to the board are ringing bells and will prompt you all to report to us who's on and off target. That suggestion that Patty just made is key. And I want to thank Dan for actually getting us down to the meat of what we need to be watching.
Hey, hold on. I want to make sure.
Excuse me.
Don't throw
money,
Kristen under the bus here.
Excuse me.
All right, I'm
watching
just
the
a little
money
disturbed about how you said that.
Excuse me. Watching the money come and go is not as meaningful as watching the benchmarks for performance. And so I'm underscoring that, and thank you for the opportunity to do that. I would also, since Act 71 is about affordability, I would also like to see that when we're evaluating whether CUDs are on their business plan, that we could identify what their affordable, so-called, when we say affordable rates, what their rate structure is as they are planning deployment. And so what the rate structure is in their plan and what their rate structure is in effect. So
Okay.
that would be in addition to Dan's. I don't mean any, and I don't mean to be belittling or disrespectful to anyone. I'm just expressing my opinion about how important it is.
Yeah, okay, but it did come off as a little bit of throwing Kristen under the bus. And I just want to come to Kristen's defense here for Kristen. That
That's
you-
fine, Christine, and the point taken. If you want to spend your time, our time doing that.
well, because right now there's a misconception. I'll just say I disagree with you. And if the board wants to prevail that any further, I'll be glad to say why. But I'm just going to say,
All right, let's do a
I'm not gonna-
timeout. Yeah,
Yep.
let's do a timeout here. There was no ill will meant in Holly's comments. That's my
okay,
take.
it sounded like it.
So, Christine, I completely understand you coming to the defense of staff, which is totally appropriate, but I don't think there was any ill will meant in the
Okay,
comments.
thank you. Because let me just say, Kristen's top focus has been to comply with federal and state grant obligation requirements. The financial system is not in place yet for her to even do what's that. And yes, you could see that you could see the amount of work that Tracy has done just to get to this spot with our state systems. So yes, we're going to do all that, but nobody's at fault at this point. We've been working really hard to get to this point. And the next challenge will be to work with each CUD to get their financial reporting systems in place. If you look at all the trouble I've had just getting to the point where we can look at budget reporting versus actuals. Now we have to do that with each CUD in order to get there. So Kristen doesn't have the capacity to meet the board, Holly, your request at this point. So you could put that responsibility on me and I will follow through. Yeah, thank you.
All right, I just want to, for the record, state that the staff's work, this is Kristen and Tracy, is tremendous, and thank you for all you're doing. And things will continue to evolve, and we all recognize that. So let's just be clear that nobody's throwing anybody under the bus here. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Kristen. Things will evolve, and we all recognize that.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other major comments that need to be made today on the budget? If not, let's move along. All right, hearing none, let's close out budget. I think you've got an earful, Christine. And we'll come back with another version, as Brian aptly said, is that this is going to be iterative. Here's a bunch of information from the board, and we'll hear more once you make modifications.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So the next item I have on my list, I think we're back to number 3, which is the confidential general counsel board interview executive session piece. I would like to make a motion that we move into executive session to discuss the pending interview. We will not interview a candidate today, but we'd like to talk a little bit about what we're going to include in the interview. My motion to go into executive session is premature general public knowledge would clearly place the public body or a person involved at a substantial disadvantage per 1 VSA section 313A3.
Actually, is that
Personnel
I think
matters.
Personnel matters. Yeah. And I'd like to include Rob in the discussion as well, too.
Okay, so Christina, Rob will join us.
Yep.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, it was a lot easier to get back to this session.
So let's see if we get everybody. The 2 of us came back, 3 of us. Laura,
Yes.
okay. Looking for Holly and Brian still, and Rob.
I'm here.
Okay, Rob's here.
I don't see Holly or Brian.
There's Holly, now waiting for Brian. Tell Brian to be patient.
We do have someone that's on the phone. I don't know if that could be Brian. If you're on the phone right now, last four digits 7077. Who might that be?
No, Brian he had a visual up, so I would assume he clicked on Teams.
While we're waiting, I just want to bring to Laura Sibilia's attention that there is a Biden nominee for the FCC that is going through confirmation hearing tomorrow.
Yes.
All right, Brian is here.
We had the pleasure of meeting with her in DC.
Oh, nice for you.
All right, we are back in regular session. The only action taken in executive session was to schedule a meeting for an interview, and that meeting of the VCBB will be February 16th at 12:30 to 1:30. That'll be for the sole purpose of a personnel matter. All right, so that deals with item 3 on the agenda. That moves us to item 4, which is Chittenden County CUV pre-construction application grant. Are they ready for us?
Yeah, Ann, are you speaking for the Chittenden County? And
Yes, I am, and Eric Wells, the chair of the CCCUD board, is here as well.
yeah, so we've reviewed this application. It meets all the criteria for a pre-construction grant. We've reviewed the business plan, so we'll turn it over to, we're recommending to the board that they approve the pre-construction grant, and we'll turn it over to the Chittenden County CUD to present the aspects behind it. But
Okay, before Chittenden County CUD gets going, I would like to make a full disclosure. I sit on the Underhill Town Select Board, and the Underhill Town Select Board has requested approval to join the Chittenden County CUD. And my understanding is we've been accepted. So
That's
if
correct.
that is perceived as a conflict of interest in my role as the BCBB chair, I want to recuse myself, and I would like to put that out to my colleagues if they believe that's a conflict.
I appreciate your announcing your conflict. I don't see any need to have you leave the room, but I would assume you wouldn't vote.
All right. I see 2 of you making that recognition, so I will attend and stay in this session, but I will recuse myself for the vote. Okay, with that, Ann, it's all yours.
Okay, great. I think Eric will actually start out with some overview comments.
Sure. Thanks, Ann, and thanks everyone for having us here today. I'm Eric Wells, the town manager in Williston, and I'm serving as the first chair of the Chittenden County CUD. We've gotten going the last month and a half here. So just kind of where we are right now, we were established with a vote of forming member communities, South Burlington, Shelburne, City of Essex Junction, Town of Essex, and Williston last November. Since then, we've had Jericho, Underhill, and Westford join the CUD with actions by their select boards over the last month. And I want to extend my thanks on behalf of the CUD board to the VCBB for funding a feasibility analysis and business plan from the consultant Rural Innovations that occurred early this winter. This work's enabled us to put together to move quickly on this pre-construction grant application for your consideration today. In Chittenden County, we're looking to fill a number of pockets of underserved addresses, and to give you a sense what that looks like, in Williston, we have the second highest number of underserved addresses in the county at 123. So we've been working on some ways to approach this, appreciate everyone's assistance in getting this moving forward, and appreciate the opportunity we have to apply for these funds today. I'll turn to you, Ann.
Okay, so as far as the application goes, we utilized the report, the feasibility and business plan report that was created by Rural Innovations. We really appreciate their support with all of the technical information that we needed to put this grant application together. You'll see in the grant application the number of unserved and underserved in each member municipality. Since we submitted this grant application, we now have 2 more members. We have Westford and Underhill. So you'll see those numbers in there under possible future CUDs, municipalities. We thought for a while that Colchester was interested. They may still be interested in joining. However, they haven't made any moves in that direction yet. So we're currently 8 member towns. And what we would like to use the pre-construction money for, first of all, is to hire an executive director. We'd like to look for someone who has telecommunications experience. We just really think this is a highly technical field, really important to have someone knowledgeable, sort of managing all of the work. We recognize that the next piece is going to be working on an RFP to put out to internet service providers. It was recommended in our feasibility plan that we not build a whole network on our own. It would just be way too cost prohibitive, but rather work with ISPs in our area to extend their networks to get the amount of fiber that's needed built to get to those unserved and underserved premises. So that's much more reasonable amount of money, and that's what the RFP process would be about, is finding the right partnerships that would work best for us. And RISI also, Rural Innovations, RISI is short for Rural Innovations, by the way. RISI also suggested that we do data validation, and that would save money in the long run by estimating the actual number of miles that we need to install fiber, rather than having the potential business partner do that themselves. And then we expect a little bit of work on contract negotiation just to make sure that all of the things required for the grant funding, as well as, good service and whatnot, are included in the agreements with our service providers. And then a small amount for administrative costs on our end here at CCRPC. We can continue to support this effort with my time as clerk of the board, as well as doing some of the back office work through our finance department, providing a web page, as well as filing space and that type of thing. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to respond. So Laura?
Hands up. Let's have Laura go. Laura Sevilla.
Hi, good afternoon, Anne and Eric. Thank you for your presentation. I'm thrilled about the formation of your CUD. Thanks for your work to get that done. And it's fascinating to think about kind of the mirror problem that we have in Chittenden County than in a lot of other parts of the state. A lot of providers and no one willing to cover a small amount of addresses. So again, thanks for taking that up. One thing that I would just like to call your attention to as you're beginning this work with Act 71, of course, you will be providing us with a universal service plan, which we look forward to getting. The other aspect of that is really ensuring accountability. You will have, I'm certain, a large number of different providers, or probably more providers than most of the other CUDs have had to select from, maybe, in terms of partnering, which of course makes sense. Act 71 was created with the notion that all of our all providers that are working in Vermont would be able to participate. It makes the most sense. As you are evaluating those who you might like to partner with, keep in mind, please, that aspect of accountability and which providers are willing to offer any kind of accountability going forward for the public investment, for the actions that your towns have taken to come together to bring service to addresses that these providers have refused to cover. So I would just ask you to keep that as a high level priority for you as you're selecting. And again, just to offer you my congratulations. I'm thrilled that you joined, that you put this together, and good luck.
Thank you. And I just
Thank you.
received the resolution from the Vermont legislature today before this meeting. It's beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you for that question, Laura, and feedback. And I'll also just reiterate for you folks that the VCBB has required from some ISPs certain service quality standards, and I would just encourage you to follow up with Christine and Rob as to what those are. So to the extent that you're partnering with any ISP that may be a private provider, we want to make sure that the service quality to consumers is of a high standard, and we've required that of, for example, Southern Vermont CUD explicitly partnered with Consolidated, and we required service standards for that. So just encourage you follow up specifically for those with Christine, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, that sounds good. And just to give you some comfort knowing how we've operated so far, you know, all of the board members and myself have a background in municipal government work. We're very cautious and careful people. And so, you know, what we've done up until this point is not reinvent the wheel and not come up with any newfangled ideas, but we've been looking at what all the other CUDs have been doing with all of their documentation, as well as, you know, their process and lessons learned. And we are going to continue to do that. We had Southern Vermont representatives from Southern Vermont CUD come speak with us last week. And next week, we've invited Ellie DeVere to join us. And then we'll be speaking with other CUDs and planning to join VCUDA and learn as much as we can, even though we're a little bit of a different situation than the other CUDs, kind of a unique setup. I've learned a ton already just from talking with them, and getting the support from Rob and Lucy has been extremely helpful. So I want to give a big shout out to them, because we wouldn't be at this point without them.
Excellent, great. Any other questions from the board members? All right, hearing none, I'm going to ask somebody else to make the motion so that I'm not perceived as influencing this at all. Go ahead, Holly.
So I'm sorry, I don't have the dollar amount in front of me, Christine.
Yeah, it's $300,000.
And that is money that is in our allocation model for pre-construction grant. In other words, it's still available in the grant fund. Yep.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so I move to award the CCB $300,000 of pre-construction grant funding according to the application as written.
Thank you, Holly. Is there a second? Okay, Dan
Second.
Nelson seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Wait, any opposed? No opposition, one abstention, and that's Patty Richards due to my position on the Underhill Select Board. You know, let the minutes reflect that. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That brings us to item 5 on the original agenda, which is the NBRC capacity grant.
Yeah, this is you've seen this a couple times now. Rob is in final negotiations with the NBRC. I'll turn it over to Rob and Rob Vitzke and Rob Fish to talk about this. Go ahead, Rob Fish. Oh,
Sure,
Holly, do you have Holly has her hand up? Holly is it? Oh, okay.
I just have a question when they're done.
Okay.
So first, a quick status update. You've seen this proposal before. It was submitted to the Northern Borders Regional Commission. They accepted the amendment. The only reason we don't have the signed grant agreement right now is because the state changed banks. So we thought that that was a minor enough hiccup to bring this back to you and to ask permission to move forward with the subgranting as described in the proposal and in requesting the creation of the position for an outreach and communications person with the VCBB, among other items. In your packet was 2 pages that added some dollar amounts, added a time schedule. We can go through that, or we can just start with questions and answers. You've heard this proposal in different versions several times now, so what's going to be the best use of your time?
All right, let's open it up to questions. Holly?
Well, I have 2 questions. First, I'd like Rob Vitzke to let us know whether this fits the needs of the CUDs as framed, this grant.
Thank you. Actually, we're very excited about this. I think that, as we've described previously, what we've done here is prioritize the very top activities we think we can get done this year and that, meet the criteria that you all said about having clear deliverables and accountability. That's maybe a little bit hard with the junior person who's going to be doing a lot of administrative support type activities. But, we felt like these were absolutely our top priorities. And I think the way the 2-pager is structured, you'll notice that both VCBB and VCUDA have put forward our top priorities. And I think aptly in part 3, there's some reserves for things yet to be figured out. And I think we're very supportive of this approach.
And we will come back to the board when those things are figured out.
So my other question is very specific. There's 130,000 for outreach and communications. Isn't that what Karen Herzog is doing? And what is going on there?
So Heron is a temporary employee at this point. We didn't have a position that was created for this role. You have certainly noticed over the past few months how valuable that role is for everything and anything we are doing. And this would allow us, since there is a set funding source, to create a permanent position based around that work that's occurring. Otherwise, temp positions are limited to a certain number of hours. They also do not have benefits. They are also not paid the appropriate wage. So this is more formalizing the capacity that we have with a more permanent position.
Yeah, if I could add, that's there are federal requirements around how many hours a temporary person can work. And so we like to move to permanent, and we're happy that NBRC has tentatively agreed to fund it.
I'm just going to, obviously I'm speaking for myself here. I think Heron has done a great job of creating a lot of opportunities for the VCBB to be prominently displayed in the press, and that's important for there to be public awareness. But I find it hard to believe that we can't engage a firm for something less than 130,000 a year to do this kind of work. That's your decision, how you want to spend this money. I just worry whether it really gives the CUDs the kind of support they need. or whether it's, I mean, they've evidently signed off on this, but I'm not thrilled. That's my statement on it. Thank you.
I can honestly say the support that we received from Heron outside of what's been publicly visible has been beyond invaluable. We would
That's
not be able
actually-
to get that from a firm.
Rob, that's not actually my point. I think creating a permanent staff position to do this work at the rate of $130,000 is maybe not efficient. And so that's really, I'm not criticizing Heron in any way.
Okay, Laura has her hand up. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob and Rob. When we think about putting together financing for the kind of complete build out in each one of these districts, and we think about the need to potentially go to bond in some of these places, where is that technical assistance going to live? Will we see that work being kind of stood up at VCUDA or at the VCBB?
Well, both, frankly. The other NBRC grant is what's funding what was Adam's position, the broadband project developer. We're in the process of interviewing various candidates. We also have the contract support with Ice Miller. This is designed to provide the CUDs and specifically provide VCUDA to have more insight and knowledge and forward looking on the finances to work very closely to make sure that we can be prepared for the bond market, that we can leverage other financial sources. So they are connected. But Rob, why don't you speak to that more directly about the broadband CFO position?
I agree, they're connected. I might spin it just slightly differently. So I think, what VCUDA has been doing in planning for this is both recognizing the complexity of the chart of accounts and the accounting needs, both from the perspective of the single audits and compliance, state requirements, reporting to VCBB, et cetera. And so we've started a bottom-up process to look at things like, what accounting system is everyone using? How are chart of accounts established? Can we find commonality in the way we do cost centers and reporting of various items so that the roll-up will be better, right? And if you think about what VCBB has been doing, they've been focused kind of on the big picture of creative financing and getting to the full scenario. So I expect the two are going to come together. VCUDA is going to help through this process get all the CUDs that want to participate on the same page. And again, we see this as seed funding for something that hopefully has enough value 2 years out that the CUDs say, I want to be a part of this and continue funding it. So I don't know if we'll have all 10 on day one, but we're certainly focused on creating value for that senior level financial communications resource, either a person or probably a contractor, frankly, to help get everyone kind of aligned and on the same page. And I think that will play right into being able to tell a story to the bond market or to other financing sources about having our act together. So I think they kind of come together in the middle. Our focus has been bottom up, and I think a lot of what Rob's been focusing on is kind of top down.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions?
Actually, Patty, I do have one more question.
Your floor is yours.
And I don't know if this is for Christine or not. I think it probably is. When we look at the remaining funds, the 820,000, those proposals to spend those funds would come back to the board. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
we will keep the board informed for sure.
All right,
With
Christine,
proposals, with proposals,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Christine, are you looking for a motion on this?
A motion would be helpful to approve.
All right. I'm going to read through your one pager here, this NBRC one pager. I move that the VCB support the request for 2.5 million from the NBRC State Capacity Program for the purposes outlined in the material in our packet. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion?
Can I ask that we amend this to more than just accept it, but move forward with the subgranting to Vacuda? Just want to make sure we have that clarity so they can get started finding the broadband project developer, not the broadband CFO.
I think that's part of the motion. It's
Okay.
as we're put into that. I think that's part of the motion. I need to embed it in what I said.
Great, thank you.
Laura?
After the motion, happy to have a
Right,
comment after we pass this.
Okay, is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the ayes have
No.
it.
No, I'm opposed
Oh, I'm sorry.
for the reasons stated earlier.
Okay, so we have one abstention, one opposed, which is Holly. All of the board members approved. Motion carries. Laura, you had comments.
Yes, just a thought for the board. I don't know if you would find this helpful, and staff may find this helpful. When you're putting together the agendas, I have seen this for other boards, offering that maybe suggested motion language that the staff is looking for might be helpful for all of us. I don't know if the rest of the board would appreciate that. I would, and it might make your lives easier. Christine and staff.
Yes, I would completely support that. Just tell us exactly what motion you would ask from us, and as long as we support that, then we can just go forward with that.
Okay. So noted, and we will do that.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back to the agenda.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the CUDA update.
I just turned off my camera. Thank you. Let me just up my sheet here. Okay, well, thank you and good to see you all. I have a couple follow-up items from last month, and some we actually already talked about today, but as you may recall, Vacuda kind of has a number of working groups right now. Two active ones are our Make Ready working group and our financial working group. And in the Make Ready group, we've made some progress since our last update to you. We've now met twice with executives in charge of Make Ready with the utility that we were concerned with, and I think are coming to a better understanding of some of the key issues related to the write-outs and the cost of pole replacements that have been something that we thought we needed to learn more about. You know, and I think those conversations have been very positive. We have had some very good, you know, kind of understanding of perspective of the way we got to where we are as a state in terms of the way this activity works. And some really good progress, I think, in terms of mapping out how we're going to do the write-outs and Make Ready process going forward. There probably are two things that you all should be aware of. One is that, you know, the cost of poles and pole replacements is increasing. And, you know, we've been told that the cost of materials has gone up as much as 30% in the last year. Now, a pole is, you know, that takes a pole from $850 to $1,200 or something, but it's material over time as we do a lot of these across the state. And it's an example of kind of how that environment is changing. The other one is, I think you all know in prior conversations that we've had, we've been trying to understand kind of how the poles that have been in service for a very long time, let's say more than 40 years, how the CUD's obligations to replace those worked. And so we're starting a conversation about that. We haven't resolved that yet. But you know, we're talking both about kind of how we could creatively work around not replacing as many poles, as well as how the costs of that affect these projects. So good progress. I think that the collaboration is great. There is no resolution on some of the bigger issues, but I think we'll get there. And wanted to let you know that we feel like we're kind of into a much more substantive conversation about these at this time. Still hope that we can find resources to help with some of the legal and technical issues, and that as the NBRC grant moves forward, I know VCBB has a placeholder in there for some resources around this, and that will be very helpful. So our group continues to meet every 2 weeks. Next meeting will be a joint meeting between us and this one partner. And like I said, I think we're in motion now. We're learning a lot, and hopefully we'll get some good progress on that soon. In the financial working group, that group has now met. We've got a number of folks, including some former financial experts from the various CUDs that are meeting and talking about what they want to do. And again, as I mentioned in the prior conversation, really the first thing is an inventory. We've come up with a survey vehicle that we'll be using with the CUDs to kind of collect the way they currently go about their financial practices, and hope to get that moving very soon. There is a long list of financial activities that the CUDs would like to coordinate on. We're starting with the basics. And so we thought the inventory was the right place to start, but you can imagine that the interest areas span from some of the reporting activities you were talking earlier about, and kind of differentiating what we're already sending monthly to the VCBB from some of these other financial activities that we may need, to long-term financing, et cetera. But we're really starting with the basics of compliance and accounting and how things are done. I think just a couple other things. VCUDA is meeting and starting to talk about the BEAD program, and I know that VCBB staff are talking about that as well. Folks are reading up on the program and starting to learn some of its intricacies. We are going to have a meeting later this week where we're hoping to learn a little bit more about some perspectives on BEAD. We're having a little bit of planning activities around the roles and priorities, and I think actually we'll be likely coming back towards VCBB asking for kind of some alignment on resourcing in various areas, and kind of trying to better articulate what we're going to do and what you're going to do coming out of our planning activity. And then I think the last item is just an update. We had a very successful legislative day on January 31st in Montpelier. We were really heartened, I think, to see the joint resolution read in the House, and Representative Sebelia's comments about overall broadband programs were just really wonderful. But throughout the day, we had about 40 representatives in attendance from 9 CUDs. They had a chance to meet with their legislators, to talk to the governor briefly, informally, to talk to the lieutenant governor, and to meet with 2 committees. And it was really heartening to see the continued support for the program, the recognition of how important it is to reach unserved addresses and underserved addresses, and the recognition of the massive community-led effort that is underway. So, I just highlight, it was a great day, very positive feedback for our efforts, your efforts. And lots of work to do, lots of questions, lots of folks thinking about the future, and the issues that actually having the infrastructure completed might mean for the state over time. But a great showing for CUDs and the progress that this group is making. So thank you to all of you, to Laura, and onward we'll go. So I can take any questions, but that's my update.
Excellent. Thanks, Rob. Any questions or comments? Laura, your hand's up.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks, Rob. Going to the discussion about the replacement of 40-year-old poles, and hearing that the CUDs are in talks with some of the utilities on that. I'm wondering what kind of I'm wondering what kind of, well, I'm curious about the work that the utilities are doing themselves to modernize and harden the grid in this moment with federal funding. And is that a part of the discussions? How, I'm sure that those two things do not naturally just dovetail, but is that part of the discussion where and how those things can dovetail? And are you getting any support from the department on those discussions? Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, so I think, as we've said before, a win for us is for us and these partners to be jointly telling the story about how we delivered broadband to unserved addresses in Vermont. And so we are shying away from any kind of regulatory process or engagement that would make it more formal. And I think, what I would like to highlight in the comments is we are in the discovery phase. We feel like we have a good partnership underway. There are some real issues here that we want to get to. But no, we're not engaging the department or looking for any kind of more formal approach until we learn a little bit more and spend some time kind of figuring out whether there are creative solutions or other ways to solve this that don't require that.
Okay, great. And I am aware that these, sorting through these timing issues is something that has been ongoing before VCUDA,
Yeah.
before, with EC Fiber, the original, this was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, I think, look, it's a collaborative process. We'd like to keep it that way.
Right. Great. Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, Holly.
So, Rob, this whole pole replacement thing is fascinating to me. You are following the existing protocols for pole replacement for new attachers, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so this is well-worn ground. Are you able to use grant funding when there is a pole replacement cost?
Absolutely. Make Ready is part of the grant funding.
Okay, so so far so good then, right? It's mostly about the timing.
It's about timing, and it's also just about the CUDs take cost control very seriously. And so as we go through this, if we see more poles scheduled for replacement than we would have expected, we just need to figure out whether, in fact, that's something we need to follow through on because it's a reality, or whether it's something that we can save some money on. And so these are big bills, and it's really important that we do our due diligence and get it right as early on in the process as we can.
Thanks for that explanation.
Okay, any other comments, questions of Rob? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much, Rob. Always great to hear from you. And with that, we'll close the VCUDA update. That brings us to item 8 on our agenda, which is staff updates.
Yes, we're we had a very progressive week last week down in Washington with the Lucy, Rob, and I attended the MTIA SBLN meeting. It was a very critical meeting. Rob, why don't you take it away and just do a quick assessment? Go ahead, Bob.
Sure, thank you. Yes, very productive meeting down in DC. The week started with us meeting with Gigi San up for the FCC nomination. The hearing was today or tomorrow. That was great. We also met with congressional staff and discussed issues related to the FCC, the NTIA, USDA programs, and just general issues associated with legacy FCC programs. We spent the rest of the week with state broadband leaders from around the country. There were over 200 people at this event with the state broadband leaders, all the federal program officers, and NTI staff to dig into the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, all the rules around subgranting and had quite a bit of FaceTime with leaders to, let's say, we come away very much more assured that a lot of the uncertainty is more flexibility and that we're going to do everything possible. And we believe we're going to succeed in maintaining much, if not all, of everything in terms of goals and process of Act 71. And we're awaiting additional feedback from their lawyers on various scenarios. And we'll report back when we have more information, hopefully in March. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Lucy, you want to talk about CUD progress and update?
Sure. So you just approved the Chittenden County CUD pre-construction grants. That's been a focus of ours. We're working with Otter Creek and Northwest towards, they are likely to be the next ones up for construction grants. And then continue to be checking in with and working with the remaining CUDs to monitor their progress and hopefully working towards having a system for reporting, as Alyssa was talking about earlier.
Laura has her hand up, so.
Go ahead, Laura. Laura, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Yep. Sorry. Let me turn both on here. Just wondering if we have an estimation on Otter Creek and Northwest timing for pre-construction grants. If anybody is here from Northwest or Otter Creek, or if Lucy is able to provide that, or Christine.
It's some of it is still a little up in the air. I believe we are aiming for April with Otter Creek, and I'm not sure I can off the top of my head say when for Northwest, but definitely coming soon.
Hi, it's Mary Kay. Our goal is hopefully as also as April. Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
How about Lamoille?
Can I just double check for the minutes? Laura, you said pre-construction, but
excuse me. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Yes. Is there Lucy? You want to speak for Lamoille, or is there somebody from Lamoille can speak up?
I can speak briefly if no one else is on the call. Lamoille, I think once Lamoille realized that they have more pre-construction funds available to them that they can apply for, I believe we would be seeing a pre-construction application from Lamoille in the near future, and that would be what would hold them over, as they would be taking a little more time on their construction application.
Thank you very much. Is there any other CUD out there that we have not noted that does not have pre-construction or construction grants in front of us?
No, I think we got it. All are covered with pre-construction. We talked about the 3 remaining that are waiting on construction grants.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to Alyssa to a quick review of the dashboard. All right, so
Yep.
I think here, yeah, go ahead, Alyssa, and we'll do it.
Okay. And I'll just make a note that the only update right now is the addition of the pre-construction grants that were added in January, the amendments that were added to the total. I also just wanted to note that EC Fiber has a pre-construction grant, but they are a 4th CUD that do not have a construction grant yet. And then also included in the packet was just an example of a map that we made using the broadband availability data when requested to go talk in front of the legislature to the education committee. So we're able to take kind of the same data and just layer some different information so that it's school district specific, and you can zoom in and see where there's Wi-Fi hotspots, and also see where there's the greatest unserved residents within the school districts, which is what you're seeing in the pink, the shades of pink. The darker areas are more underserved. And that's it.
Nope, Laura's got her hand up.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yes. Can we have that map back up, please?
Oh, yep. Sorry.
That's okay. And can you scroll up so that Southern Vermont is my Teams bar is across? There we go. Great. Thank you. So it was my understanding as part of the 2009 one of the 2009 it was BTOP projects was SovereignNet now, I believe, which has been purchased by First Light, that publicly funded network, that the schools were connected with fiber. And I think you are showing us Halifax and Whitingham, Reedsboro, Stamford, and maybe Wardsboro and Stratton. I'm not sure. In the Brown areas there. Is there anyone from Southern Vermont CUD that's on the call that can tell us about this?
Laura, as you zoom in, what you're seeing, the green dots are the schools within the school districts. So the schools green is fiber. So all of the schools are served with fiber. The pink is in relationship to the households within the school districts.
Okay. And the brown indicates that it's 75% not covered. Is that right?
Well, 60,
okay,
yeah.
So that's Wardsboro, or that's Marlborough. And then what are the ones on the Bennington side? Is that Reedsboro and Stamford?
Sorry.
No, you're going to go to the left. Bennington is on the west coast.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't.
It's hidden by your legend. There you go.
Yeah. And down. Okay. Is there anybody on from Southern Vermont CUD that can talk to us about the status of negotiations with First Light in terms of their build and their work with Fidium? Is there anybody on from Southern Vermont? Okay.
I guess not. What's your specific question, and we can follow up on it?
Yeah, it would just be great to hear from Southern Vermont about how that is being incorporated into their work with Fidium and consolidated.
Okay, all right. So you like a little update in terms of where they are in terms of their construction progress, in terms of when that area is going to get fully covered.
Yes.
Okay.
From Southern Vermont would be great. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, let's put that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yep, we can put that in the parking lot when we get there, but we'll make sure it gets on there.
Okay. Good question, Laura.
Can I just ask whether that map is available on the website, on the VCBB website?
Yes, it's available on the hub site that we shared the link to.
Okay, thanks, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa, for walking through that.
Yep, and that's in the minutes in the board packet, I believe, too.
Yeah, that link's available when you go to the VCBB website too, right? Do I have that right?
So this is the hub site, explorer-vcbb.hub.arcgis.com.
Yep, okay, good.
So these are all of the maps that you can publicly see right now.
Patty, if I might.
Go ahead,
Patty?
yes, Laura. Yep, go ahead.
So I think this is just, if I haven't actually, let me just spell out what I'm calling out here. So in 2009, we had massive public investment that came into the state to connect schools. that massive public investment then was sold to a private company and is no longer available to Vermonters. And so when we talk about accountability and partnerships with our CUDs, these are exactly the types of things that we're looking to make sure are not repeated. Thank you, Patty.
Okay, thank you very much, Laura. It's important to go down memory lane for that. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, last on the staff update is communications and media.
Yep, go ahead, Heron.
Yes, I wanted to let you know, we have a new part of our website called VCBB in the News. And I have all the media links on that website. So anytime you want to take a look, you can. I have those all updated. And then I do have them all in the weekly updates as well. So there's kind of two ways for you to get them. In a brief summary of the coverage we've had since our last meeting. Mainly the focus has been on the FCC maps. There have been a lot of national stories, and Vermont seems to be featured in pretty much every one of them. And the deadline to file challenges, which was last month on the 13th. We did have a couple of stories about our CUD model in Vermont, and two stories in the Vermont Standard, which is a newspaper based in Woodstock. They don't have an online presence, a very thorough online presence. So thought I would bring those up. They focused on what we're doing to connect people in general and improving broadband and cell coverage. We also had a story about our policy briefing presentation to the for legislators and the media. That was part of the governor's series of policy briefings. But if you do get a chance, check out that page. It makes puts all the stories in one place, so they're really easy to get to and refer back to.
Yeah, and I would add to that, what we heard from the NTIA last week is to make sure the states continue their work on the improvement of the FCC map. So we'll continue outreach on that.
Okay, thank you. Holly, you have your hand up.
On that mapping piece, is there any indication of congressional work? I'm just so worried about how that's going to play out in the long term. Christine or Heron, do you have any idea? And Heron, by the way, I think you're doing a great job, just to be clear. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, on the mapping, this is why it's important to get people like Gichi-san on the FCC. It's going to continue to be a fight. Certainly there's a large amount of discontent amongst the states. That battle is going to continue. And again, we were urged to continue to stay focused on it because it is going to require a change at the FCC.
Well, I believe we have heard that though there was a deadline that passed a month ago, they weren't sure that new challenges would not be included in the funding. Right. And we know that they can be included in helping the maps get better. I think we're proceeding to say we need to still file challenges to the public because there's still a good chance that could impact our funding, I think is kind of the message that we're trying to put out there.
So Christine, in hearing your comments, is there an action item for the VCBB or the VCBB board members specifically, or it's one thing for them to tell us to keep on it. It's something else for us to have a plan. So could you maybe put that on the parking lot for what is our plan on this item for coming months?
Yes, happy to. I should tell you that we're kind of triaging our resources. We spent a lot of time on this and we're beginning to second guess what the value of that time was. so we are gonna continue to move forward. We'll let you know what we're doing, but it's, we're just not sure what the return on investment is here.
Patty, can I, this being the conclusion of staff reports, can I make a request that our standing staff reports include a BEAD report. We've received $6 million. Christine, Rob, and Lucy just made a visit to Washington in preparation for a strategic plan in this regard. There is a committee that's meeting periodically to talk about BEAD, equity, and affordability. It just seems like it belongs on our agenda on a standing basis.
Yep. Christine, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's actually right in line with what we were thinking. We're actually thinking next month we come in and do a full presentation on how the BEAD infrastructure plan and the equity plan come together. You know, we've been meeting, actually, it's timing next month is really good because we put it, you know, we had a lot of confusion before we went to DC. We're now waiting for their attorneys to get back to us with the recommendations we made. And we should have those recommendations back and we should be able to give you, we'd like to, you know, put an hour on the agenda to do a formal presentation and then we can follow up with updates. So I think that's a good suggestion, Holly.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, any other comments, questions, pearls of wisdom? Laura?
Yeah. Yep. I would like to just make sure that we are, that is happening with VCUDA so that we are hearing from the CUDs. I believe those conversations are happening between our staff and VCUDA, so it would be good to have that presentation be jointly made.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Any other feedback, questions, comments? All right, hearing none, let's move to public comment. Christine or Rob, you want to field this for us?
Yeah, Rob, you do such a good job on that, so.
Sure. The only hand I still see up is Holly, and I assume that that's old. Okay. Do we have any public comment? If you do, please raise your hand, or if you're on the phone, please speak up. Going once. Anybody? Okay, there does not seem to be any public comment.
Okay. All right, let's go to the parking lot, item 10.
Okay. So on the parking lot, I don't know if anybody else can pull that up. I don't have it on my, I run two different computers here, but there's basically two items on the parking lot, and we'll add two more today. One is to establish the policy to address enforceability with any of the partners of the CUDs. That's pretty much ongoing. We're certainly reinforcing that with the new grants that are coming up. So the resolution says we'll share a plan with the board at the future meeting, but right now we're focusing on getting the grant agreements. We have include a placeholder for budget update, dashboards, and policy and goals discussion of the all meeting board agenda. I would say we're doing that every time now. So I don't know if that needs to be a specific targeted action item. And then, of course, we have two more we added today, which is to provide an update on Southern Vermont and their construction plans and what they're doing. Specifically, that question was in relation to Bennington County, but we'll have them give a general update. And we'll present a BEAD infrastructure and equity program update at the next board meeting. Anything else I missed?
Thank you, Christine. Any other items for the parking lot? Questions, comments?
Sorry, just so we'll just continue to have this discussion at around budget documents, Christine. Will that be something that's just kind of part of our regular?
That's going to be part of our regular meeting until we get that ironed out, and then we'll report quarterly on that.
Okay, and this is just a kind of a checking in on how are we doing in terms of getting to the documents that the board wants to see, not a reviewing where we're at financially.
Yeah. Once we get it in a way that the board can, it works for the board, then it'll be where we're at.
Great. Thank you.
All right, great. Any other comments or questions? Okay, parking lot is done. Last item on our agenda is to confirm the next meeting, which is March 13th. Check in on with everybody to make sure we can all make it. I am away that weekend before I'll be traveling back from New Hampshire after a big dog sled race. There is a chance that we could be delayed. So I'll let you know if that's the case. So if that's the case, Dan, are you available on the 13th?
I can be. It's a
Okay.
little tight on my end as well, but if you're not able to, I will be sure to be.
I mean, my schedule shows that I should be able to make it, but with these races, things pop up and they move race times around. And if we're delayed, then we wouldn't travel back until Monday.
Yeah, well, hopefully you'll have snow.
Exactly. Good point.
And just to reinforce that, coming out of executive session, we're going to have a special meeting at 12:30 p.m. on Thursday, which will be held in executive session for the board to meet the potential general
To
counsel.
conduct an interview.
Yeah.
All right. With that, but Holly, you're muted.
And a reminder that there are documents you're going to forward that for that meeting that are proprietary or confidential, rather.
Yes.
Okay. And I just want to, Patty, if I might, just check in. I know we all have schedules, but with one meeting a month, I feel like it's imperative we cannot miss a monthly meeting. And so if something happens where both you and Dan are not available, I also really am not interested in ever seeing us have a 2-1 decision on anything again. So, I'd like to just, as much as we can in advance, know if there are going to be any scheduling conflicts. That would be great. I will also be out of town the week before, but I expect to be back on the 13th. So thanks.
Good points, Laura. Thank you. All right, with that, I move that we adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to point out that we're ending nearly an hour early. So there's been conversation about not having enough board time. That's not borne out by this particular agenda. Thanks very much.
Yeah, but we did a lot an hour at the beginning for the attorney, but that didn't happen. So.
All right, any other discussion or comments? All right, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Bye.
I know.
Ayes carried. Motion approved. We are adjourned at 2:20. Thank you all.
Happy Valentine's Day.